Hotel Trivago.
This is how I started the 80s. This is how they finish.
You look like everyone's first girlfriend.
Hello and welcome to the all-new Big Fat Quiz of the 80s. Terrible fashion, shoulder pads and awful hair. And that's just our celebrity guests. Straight in there.
The Big Fat Quiz of the 80s, Sunday at 9 on 4.
Why?
Mum, he is telling you why.
So it looks like Dennis has been roped in, but can he go through with it? You're watching Channel 4 and this is Hollyoaks.
Secret smile, the fragrance for her. New designer fragrances from Impulse. Sponsor Hollyoaks.
I love you, Will.
New designer fragrances from Impulse. Sponsor Hollyoaks.
G'day, I'm Adam Hills. Join me and my co-host Josh Widdicombe and Alex Brooker with our guest Eddie Izzard as we ask the big questions about what is okay and what is not okay. That's tonight, live at 10 on 4.
New designer fragrances from Impulse. Sponsor Hollyoaks.
We don't even know what happened.
8 o'clock tonight, brand new, firm but fair. A spoonful of sugar from the 3-day nanny will sort out any kids. You hope. 10 o'clock tonight, it's the last in the current run of The Last Leg. I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere. Eddie Izzard is tonight's guest. The Channel 4 News is what's coming next.
Sweet smile, the fragrance for her. New designer fragrances from Impulse. Sponsor Hollyoaks.
Professional nanny Catherine Hughes has spent over 20 years helping families at the end of their tether.
They can throw what they like at me. I have seen it all before.
It's vital for us to get on the same page as our marriage is going to end.
I try the naughty steps, confiscating toys. You think of it, I've done it.
Get in your room now!
Now with only 3 days to work her magic.
You just punched her in the face!
And using every trick she knows.
I've got to bring them together for the sake of their marriage and their children.
Can she restore peace to the family?
I want calm. We're going to do it my way, and it's going to work.
She's like a real-life Mary Poppins.
The 3-Day Nanny. Tonight at 8 on 4.
They made us strip in the street.
Can you describe what you were wearing?
I was Buzz Lightyear, and I was dressed as the Tin Man.
But they don't go together.
I'm sorry?
Why didn't you do Woody?
Why didn't you do Woody?
Cowboy hat, cowboy boot.
Okay.
Toy gun. Easy.
Brand new comedy, London Irish, starts Tuesday at 10 on 4.
Queenie! Queenie! The news is on! All right, all right.
8 o'clock tonight, and good news for desperate parents everywhere. There's a nanny in town, and in just 3 days she's promising results. That's our brand new show. But right now, with Jon Snow and Krishnan Gurumurthy, it's tonight's Channel 4 News.
The police cannot give this undercover police whistleblower immunity, but they will investigate his evidence that they tried to smear Doreen Lawrence. Good evening. Police have admitted to Doreen Lawrence that they did put spies into her campaign to win justice for her murdered son. But the man who blew the whistle on it all, Peter Francis, they cannot protect from being prosecuted himself. Tonight, the shadowy group of police who allegedly smeared the Lawrence campaign, we talked to the whistleblower himself and asked why the government refuses still to have a public inquiry into what the police got up to. And also to Doreen Lawrence's solicitor.
Records indicate that officers, undercover officers, were deployed to look into campaigners and supporters of the Lawrence campaign, Lawrence family. So quite clearly what Francis appears to be saying is true.
Also tonight, now you see me as Deputy Prime Minister, now as the leader of the Liberal Democrats. Clegg tries to explain coalition politics to his party and the country.
Thank you, thank you. We're not here to prop up the two-party system. We're here to bring it down.
Boris Johnson and George Osborne deny there is a dangerous London-led house price bubble, but are they right?
I would say, yes, alert to the risks, but let's not pretend there's a housing boom.
Another general strike in Greece as a leading anti-fascist artist is murdered. Allegations fly that his murderer is a member of the far-right Golden Dawn. And they're funny, offensive, and always subversive. The Arab Spring in cartoons.
In the age of the internet and the mobile phone video, what role have the illustrators played in the dramatic events of the last 2 years? We speak to the cartoonists trying to capture and change the times. And also tonight, they trained in giant fridges while their rivals grew up on snowy mountains. But British athletes are in contention for medals at the Sochi Winter Games. The skiers and snowboarders have high hopes.
Tonight, a new twist in one of the biggest police scandals of recent years. Peter Francis, a former undercover police officer who accused Scotland Yard of being involved in a smear campaign against the family of the murdered black teenager Stephen Lawrence, has been denied immunity from prosecution for potential breaches of the Official Secrets Act. Peter Francis first made his allegation about the police in June to a Channel 4 dispatches programme. This prompted political outrage and calls for a public inquiry. At this moment, it's down to a police investigation, Operation Hearn, to establish the truth. But tonight, in his first broadcast interview since his original claims, Peter Francis has said without that immunity from prosecution, he is refusing to speak to the police investigation and is renewing his calls for a public inquiry. We'll be hearing from Imran Khan, Doreen Lawrence's solicitor, in a moment. But first this, from our Home Affairs correspondent, Andy Davis.
Peter Francis, old alias Pete Black, the man whose account earlier this year of life undercover proved politically explosive.
I have to say, nothing is off the table. If
the whole country has been appalled by these allegations.
Or inquiries need to be held, they will be held. This is not an acceptable situation. Or inquiries need to be held, they will be.
And I fear that they are true.
We must get to the bottom of it.
The catalyst, his appearance on Channel 4's Dispatches, detailing his work for Scotland Yard's secretive former undercover unit, the Special Demonstration Squad, or SDS, in which he claimed that in 1993 he was instructed to find intelligence to discredit, to smear the family of the murdered teenager Stephen Lawrence.
Had I, through my circles, come up with something along the lines of the family were political activists, somebody in the family was involved in demonstrations, drug dealers, anything.
This account has since been challenged by two former senior special branch officers. His credibility questioned in some quarters of the media. This is his first television interview since the Dispatches programme.
Do you stand by the claims you made in the Dispatches programme?
100%.
And yet you're the only one who's come forward with this allegation regarding the Lawrence family campaign.
I've welcomed SDSF's officers to come forward at the end of the Dispatches programme. If you actually listen to it, I made a very clear appeal for other SDS officers to come forward who hopefully would actually say this is what their instructions were as well.
But to date they haven't, have they?
I don't know.
He is keen to clarify one matter, however. The word smear, he says, should not be interpreted as the police having tasked him to fabricate evidence against the family.
The word smear, if that implies at all anywhere in anyone's mind that would involve the word lying, that's what I would like to basically correct. Under no circumstances was my remit to lie about any of this. So when I go out, what I'm basically looking for is any solid intelligence on the family.
How do you know that had you found anything negative, the Metropolitan Police would definitely have used it to, as you put it, smear the family?
Because I was told expressly to look for any intelligence that could be used to undermine them.
Such a claim involving Scotland Yard and the Lawrence family is now the subject of a major police investigation, Operation Hearn. It's examining other undercover scandals too, such as the use of dead children's identities, the sexual relationships with targets. And it's led by this man.
This needs investigating, and my plea would be for Peter Francis to give us a statement, because without that statement we cannot ask the question, who tasked you, who was the supervisor, what was your reporting, what was the reason you were tasked?
Peter Francis has said he'll answer precisely these questions for Mick Creedon's team if they can guarantee him one thing, that he won't be prosecuted for any breaches of the Official Secrets Act over what he's told journalists in the past. And the police response to that, this letter to Peter Francis, in which a senior officer writes, "Neither the Crown Prosecution Service or myself can provide immunity from prosecution for breaches of the Official Secrets Act or any other matter." He goes on to say, "I've made the decision at this time to treat you as a witness and hope that you are prepared to assist the inquiry."
What are you going to do now?
Basically, I just revert to what I said, is that I will only appear before a public inquiry. I'm also prepared to appear before the House of Commons Select Committee. I've already volunteered to do that.
You've made a hugely serious allegation here. Isn't it only fair that the police are able to examine the evidence upon which you've made this allegation?
I think that is fair. I think my offer not to be prosecuted for what I've said on the matter, I think is also very fair as well.
And if they can't give you this immunity from prosecution?
We wait for the public inquiry.
But so far, calls for a public inquiry have been resisted by the government. MPs, meanwhile, continue to ask questions.
Have you uncovered any evidence so far that undercover officers were involved in smearing the Lawrence family?
No, none.
Mick Creedon, who's leading the Scotland Yard inquiry into these allegations, into undercover policing, has said that they've trawled through thousands of records and to date have found no evidence whatsoever of a smear campaign against the Lawrence family. Is that because, in reality, there was no smear campaign?
No, not in the slightest. Just keep looking. And if he doesn't find it, maybe the public inquiry will help him find it.
Peter Francis went undercover as Pete Black, a far-left militant activist. When it was over, he struggled with identity issues and, diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, went on to sue his former bosses at Scotland Yard for lack of psychiatric care.
Is there a possibility that, given what you've been through in the past, the nervous breakdown, the post-traumatic stress disorder, that your recollection